Hey everybody, I came across this video the other day on Instagram and I think we should all take a look. It drops some serious allegations on the Trump administration and I wanted to analyze if it's just some liberal propaganda, if it's just outright fascism, if there are things that we can learn from it and pay attention to. So let's just dive into it. Here is the actual video, but first I wanted to go through this guy's profile to see if he is someone with credentials and who we can trust, or if he's a nobody and we shouldn't really pay much attention to him, right? So first of all, we see that he's obviously Canadian, right? Professor Poutine with a maple leaf, clearly Canadian. Doesn't really list much else. He's got a fairly decent following, but that could mean anything. Could have purchased them for all I know. He does have a Ground News affiliate link, which does give him quite a bit of credibility in my book, simply because it does mean that he at least tries to be as unbiased in his news and his gathering and his sources as possible. But it could be that he just goes to the left-leaning newspapers and articles and whatnot, or just the right-leaning ones. Who knows? But at least he's going to a source that lists those biases. So that's good in my eyes. Anyway, let's dive into the video itself.
Foxworthy, if you're watching this video, you just may be a terrorist. Professor Poutine here, time for Mysteries, Histories. Stick with me on this, folks, because this impacts every single one of you watching this video, and you aren't going to like how. As many of you are aware, Donald Trump, a few weeks back, designated Antifa a terrorist organization, which doesn't make any sense. It's not an organization. They don't have a CEO or a board of directors. You can't call the Antifa hotline because you didn't get your secret decoder ring and membership badge.
Absolutely true. Technically speaking, Antifa is a movement. Not much else. It's basically self-designation. If you think you're part of the movement, that's it. It started, I think, in the 1930s in Europe as a response to the growing support for fascism, not only in Germany, obviously mostly in Germany, but in other places such as Spain or Britain or Italy too. However, it has evolved, obviously. Although the core principles are the same, the way to achieve that is very different. Very similar to like feminism, right? First wave feminism, very different to fourth wave, same thing. But let's keep going.
It's an organizing principle. It's an idea. Many of your grandparents were Antifa when they stormed the beaches on D-Day.
Fair point. That is true. The United States government obviously sent soldiers to fight against the growing fascism, and the Nazis and the Axis were spreading quite fast. So they technically were anti-fascist.
Well, this has caused some real problem for law enforcement. Who are they actually supposed to be targeting? So Donald Trump followed up with another executive order. This is the one that impacts every single one of you.
Okay.
This executive order was signed on the 25th of September, and it's called Countering Domestic Terrorism and Organized Political Violence. And what this does is it designates exactly who the federal government can now target as terrorists. And before I tell you how this applies to you, this executive order also authorizes the Justice Department to use any other governmental agencies, including the NSA, FBI, whoever they want, to investigate, track down, arrest anybody who might be involved in any of the terroristic activities that are listed in this particular example.
Okay, before we go into the actual terroristic activities, I want to mention how this sounds very much like the Patriot Act, and we all know how that went. That was not a net positive for the United States, especially not for its citizens. Unrestricted spying and prosecution of your own citizens, don't think that's going to bode well, and especially doesn't really mix well with the Bill of Rights and the American Constitution.
Well, what would those terroristic activities actually be? You may be a terrorist if you are engaged in anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, supporting the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, race, and gender, or hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality.
Okay, that seems a bit too broad, especially like the anti-capitalist, anti-American, anti-Christianity. Those are things that are protected by the very First Amendment. You are allowed to hate your country if you want to. I don't see that you should. But if you want to, you're entitled to it. So the fact that they can go after you, obviously it sounds way too broad, but my hope is that they're actually going to target the people that are just like the organizers and the people that are actually causing problems and violence and riots, not so much the people who just don't think capitalism is the best system, and they may even hate Christianity. You should be able to do that if you want to.
That is terrifying in the scope that Donald Trump just used to paint every single enemy of the administration's viewpoints, this extreme right-wing Christian nationalist view of America, a terrorist. What does it mean if you hold anti-capitalist views? If you believe that prescription medication should be cheaper, does that mean you're a terrorist? What does it mean to hold anti-Christian views? So now if you're a Muslim or a Jew, you're a terrorist?
No, well, obviously that's intellectually dishonest. Just because you're a Muslim, just because you're a Jew, you're not anti-Christian. I do think that just by, I don't know, saying, Hail Satan, or the Antichrist is coming, something like that, I don't think you should be able to be targeted. However, this executive order technically does allow targeting the kind of people that say that. So that's the problem, not just being a Muslim or a Jew.
What does it mean if you don't share the traditional views on family and morality? So if you believe in LGBTQ plus rights and anybody can live and love whoever they want?
Well, not everybody can love whoever they want, okay? Important distinction. I think, for example, bestiality, pedophilia, definitely not okay. And that's technically, that's just loving someone. Yeah, but a child or an animal cannot consent. So that's definitely not okay. This is love between consenting adults. Anyways, in this case, technically, yes, you are holding an what was it called? Traditional American family, whatever they called it, right? If you support LGBT, by definition, simply because you are supporting a family model that doesn't have a husband and a wife. In this case, that is very dangerous. And these are people, in my opinion, that didn't choose the sexual orientation. That's not something that you get to pick. And that's not a debate. There are scientific studies on this. Homosexuality, sexual deviations, as you may want to call them, are seen in animals as well. It's not just like a human thing. And it definitely should be prosecuted.
Does that mean you're a terrorist? What does it mean to hold extreme views on race and migration? So if you think brown people shouldn't get arrested just because they're brown, or if you think that ICE shouldn't be able to sweep anybody they want off the streets and throw them into a camp, you're a terrorist? Folks, authorizing the Justice Department to target anybody who disagrees with this administration's view of what it means to be quote-unquote American should terrify all of you, because it means any of you could be next. Consider yourself updated.
That is very true. It is scary. Okay, this is how authoritarianism starts. It may not seem like much, and you may think, this is just, a step into improving our security. And I can see and I can understand why someone would believe that. And I've actually gone through the document itself myself, and I've agreed with the majority of the points. It's not like this is like some mind-blowing idea of, oh my God, this is something that is unprecedented. The bulk of the document, 95% of it, is fine. However, the problem is that the small couple details here and there that all of a sudden turn the whole thing into a weapon. It is no longer about defending and protecting. It now can be turned into a sword branded against the own American citizens just because their political views and their beliefs do not match those of the administration. And that's a huge issue. No matter what side you stand on and who you defend, who you believe in, please, this is the kind of thing that should raise alerts. If your political party is the one doing this, you should call them out. If it's the other side, you should be defending yourself, in my opinion. And defending yourself and your rights doesn't mean violently. It means going out in the streets, voting in the way that you deem the most reasonable, okay? In this case, both sides should be calling this out and saying the president has given himself and his administration too much power. This is overkill. And although, again, I honestly share the reasoning for this, I don't think this is the right approach to it. I do believe in the majority of the actions listed in the document, which are things like protecting and stopping people who are indoctrinating others, trying to recruit them into violent activities, funding these violent activities. I'm fine with that. That is absolutely okay. But this is an executive order that is meant to affect every single American, but driven by the desire to silence one single group. How is that possible? Like that's it should be much more targeted. The problem is now they can use that designation as Antifa to persecute anyone. Anyone. So this is plain and simply political overreach. And I don't know what's more scary. A, the fact that any American can now be deemed as Antifa and suddenly the rights are gone.
And it's gone.
And this is extremely simple. They can just fake a video or two, making you say things that you didn't say, or throwing a Molotov cocktail covered with a bandana and whatnot. Make it look like it's you, right? And there you go. You've been framed as Antifa, and you're now a terrorist. And if you don't believe that this is possible, go watch my other video that I did a couple days ago, precisely about Sora 2 and how this is very much possible nowadays. Or what B? The fact that this executive order is, well, completely contrarian to American democracy. I mean, where are those checks and balances that the American democracy is founded on, that you so firmly believe in and you so vehemently defend? At this stage, personally, this brings up one thing to mind, and that is McCarthyism. If your neighbor points to you and says to the police, hey, this person I think is part of Antifa, they are organizing riots. Even if they have no evidence, they now have the power to spy on you, to go into your house even, probably. I mean, it's to the extent of the law. What does that mean? They can probably do quite a few things to completely control you and just censor you. And so, as a clearly non-American, what are Antifa doing that is so bad, so absolutely awful that it would warrant being deemed as a terrorist organization? Is the violence in the country truly that awful? Like, what I see from the outside, I mean, it's quite skewed. It may not be the full picture, so I would love to genuinely understand. Like, are they that bad? Or is this response completely overkill, just trying to paint them in the worst light possible to justify the executive order to be able to have this power? Please do leave it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Is this truly warranted? Because I am completely open-minded. I may be in the wrong. This may be totally justified and an absolutely balanced response to what's happening. So change my mind, honestly. I mean, I looked around and all I could see was a couple stories here and there. The worst thing was the shooting at the ICE facility, where the shooter didn't even kill any ICE officers. It was actually 3 detainees, which was absolutely awful. But that was like the worst thing I could find. Although, again, this could be because I'm seeing biased sources and I can't see the whole picture. And if my mind has changed, I will definitely make a follow-up video and explain why this executive order is actually necessary, and the details and the facts that made me think that. Until then, I will still deem this as a very blatant power grab. I can go through the document if you want. It is quite dense and it lists quite a few things. I've read it and I reiterate, I agree with the vast majority of it, the wording, everything, except for that part where they allow themselves the liberty to deem anyone as a terrorist. Just with these two hoops, first designating Antifa as a terrorist organization, and then saying anyone who believes in these things is part of Antifa, therefore a terrorist. Suddenly, anyone on US soil at this point in time, and probably any American citizen outside of it, is now liable to being designated as a terrorist and prosecuted as such. Let that sink in. Anyways, I'm going to leave you with that. And obviously, do not forget that Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is delaying the swearing in of a congresswoman that has already ratified that she would vote yes on releasing the Epstein files. With that vote, they would be released. And if that doesn't scream, we're protecting our buddies, I don't know what does. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, leave comments on what you thought. Are you in favor of it? Are you against it? Do you think Antifa is the worst thing in the world? Are they saving the world? I don't know. Whatever. Your opinions, I want to hear them. Please leave them down below. And I will see you all on the next one.